two if I'm lucky. So I'm going to just go ahead and dive in. Thanks for having me. Really honored to be here, and appreciate all the love and support I've been getting from the Powur community. Um, it's been definitely over the last 3 years, but it's been building, right? It's like when you give, you get back. And right, I've been really focused on just giving to you guys, and it's nice to feel appreciated. So anyways, without any further ado, we're going to talk about NEM 3.0. I show this photo just because a new environment requires new ways of thinking. If you consider that, sure, we think about things in a certain way based on, our background and our, everything we've learned and how we grew up, right? That's obviously impactful in terms of how we operate, but our environment actually shapes the way we see the world. And so now we have this new environment, and it's going to shape the way we see the world, but we're kind of maybe a little disoriented, right? Compared to a month or two ago, just like, hey, get in line, I'll get you through an M 2.0. This is a new environment. There's a new conversation. And so I want to help everybody on the line to really think about this from a new way. Now, one of the biggest things I've already heard from people is like, oh, we already rang the towel with NEM 2.0. The towels, we wrung out all the customers, right? There's no more solar customers, right? And what's really interesting is that I guarantee in the last month or two, somebody contacted you that said, oh, I heard about NEM 2.0 going away. Help me right now, right? So, NEM 0.1 went away, and they didn't reach out to you. NEM 2.0 was going away in December of last year, and we knew about it even a year before them. They didn't contact you. So people just found out about this. The summary is that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people in California that are clueless. They just missed the boat on NEM 2.0, and it is what it is, right? And so they're now exploring what they're going to do based on where they are now. I'm not sure if you ever heard the adage where you say, what's the best time to go solar? And the best time was like 20 years ago, right? You had already paid off your system, 6 times over. What's the second best time is today, right? So, we can't look in the rearview mirror. Everybody is where they are today. The people that got into NEM 2.0 are where they are. And there's plenty more people to support with phenomenal home energy systems. So, I've talked about the rates and really how now there's no connection between what you pay for energy and what you sell energy back for. They're based on 2 different tables. This is the export table. I will show you the imports. For example, for SDG&E, if I went down to their import table, it would look like this, right? These rates are decoupled. They're separate from what you export. So you pay something for what you buy energy for, and you pay something else for what you sell energy for. So what you sell energy for is now mostly really low, right? I talked about it earlier. It's like less than 6 cents. And there's these key times where you can actually export to the grid, but those are usually when the sun's not shining. So since exports are really low most of the time, you just have to kind of let go of the conversation where, hey, spin your meter backwards is a good thing. It used to always be a good thing. Now, not such a good thing. We're trying to avoid people from having to spin their meter backwards by storing the energy in a battery, right? So, it's use it or lose it, or store it and use it later. And the kind of go-to product that people are starting to get excited about are, of course, an Enphase system, but it's not necessarily required to do all the backup stuff, right? It's cool. There are a lot of people who really want backup. They care about it. It's important to them. But if you think about what changed in California, there are not all of a sudden more wildfires. overnight, there aren't more grid outages. None of that really changed overnight. And so, you take a battery backup system, which is a more complicated conversation, and you, bring that to the market, which is a more expensive product, both in terms of hardware and software. And you're really solving two needs, right? You're solving savings, but you're also solving this, keep the lights on. And so the other solution that we have available is a grid-tied battery. And it's just way more cost effective. You're going to see a way better ROI. It's a simpler sale in many ways. You're going from a 2-day installation, solar and a battery, to a 1-day installation, solar and a grid-tied battery. Of course, this does not work when the grid goes down. And here's how I recommend kind of layering this or communicating this. I would probably, if I was selling in the home, I haven't sold in the home in years, but I used to do a lot of that. I was a rock star, by the way. Who would want me on their team? Huh? I've gotten a few people who said, hey, join my team. Come on. It would be fun. You guys are awesome. So how I might present this, I might start with the grid tied. I might say, look, you're not going to get much value back for what you sell to the grid. We want to store that energy so you can use that, when you need energy, when the sun's not shining. Right. And here's a solution that'll solve your problem. Great payback. And I kind of put that in front of them so the numbers make sense for them. Right. They're saying, oh, 6-year payback. The numbers make sense. I'm on board. Let's go. And I probably would have done some discovery earlier in the conversation to just see if they really, really value a battery. So I probably early on would have said, just out of curiosity, do you ever have grid outages here? Right. Just kind of keep it super light. Oh yeah, we do all the time. Okay, cool. Good to know. Right. Or no, we never have grid outages. Right. So if they said we had grid outages all the time, we have blackouts all the time, they start complaining about that, I'm probably going to give them a backup solution. But if they say, no, we don't, it's not really a big concern, or we don't have that all the time, then I would provide the grid tied option. And then I ask them, I say, is backup energy important to you? And, they're going to say yes or no. Right. And if they say no, you say, okay, great. Well, this is a great cost effective solution that doesn't have backup. They say yes. I say, okay, great. Well, I would build more meaning behind that for them. What would it be like for you if the grid went down and your power would be on? Oh, that'd be awesome. I once heard from an owner of a solar company who's installed a lot of batteries. And his wife had asked him to install a battery in their home, and he'd been procrastinating, and he finally did it. And the grid went down, and the neighbor basically was like, what's going on? You guys' lights are on? And he was like the superhero for his house. He's like, it made me feel like a man to keep the power on when the grid went out. Right. So I'd build that, through storytelling and engaging, and help them really feel like that's meaningful. And then you provide that premium price for that. Oh, that's $8,000 more, or whatever it is, 12, or that way, when they think about the 8 or the 12, they're not mixing that up or collapsing that with their already confirmation that the numbers make sense. You got the numbers making sense on the grid tied solution at the best ROI, and then they're paying for the battery backup if they choose to, with the benefits, right, that they're going to get for their family, because they're separate. They really are now. They didn't used to be. You used to be like, you got some savings, you got some. But I think keeping those conversations separate. But I'm open to feedback. If in a week or two you guys have new strategies that are really, I'd love to hear more about what's working for you. I just think that's going to be an interesting way to approach things. So if we talk about strategy, now let's talk about kind of a little bit design, right? And how to size batteries. I talked about this a lot during the masterclass, right? You got to figure out at a high level. Now you're going to have great design tools. I know Powur Vision is working on an M 3.0 module. I know you guys may use some other tools and augment them. If anybody wants a free solar graph demo, they could play with that if they have an analytical customer where they need to run more in-depth calculations if Powur doesn't provide that. It's kind of it's not really something I sell directly, but my company bought Solargraph 2 years ago. So we've been working on that algorithm. But, I'm not going to focus on those modeling tools today because they're their own, it's its own thing. I could do an hour training on those and how to run those numbers. I want to help you think about this stuff, right? So, and even the modeling tools, even the best tools, using the best data. So what's the best tools with the best data? The best tools use all those intervals and they take the green button data. The green button data is that 15-minute interval data they can download from the utility. Basically a huge spreadsheet, 15 minutes, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I don't know, that's 4 times 24 times 365, 35,000 data points for energy use. It takes all of those, puts it in the model, takes all of those rates, compares all those things. That's the best you're going to get, right? Even those tools are not going to solve all your problems and allow you to get off the hook for actually thinking about how energy use works. Why? What if they say, oh, my usage is changing. I'm getting an EV, or I can now take my EV and not just run it at nighttime. I can run it at daytime, charge my EV at daytime, or I want to do this, or right. You can't always predict what's happening in the future through a tool that's looking in the past. So you want to be able to understand and make good consultative recommendations. So the key is to understand when they're using energy. If the majority of their energy use is happening during the daytime, they need a smaller battery. If they look like a lot of standard homeowners where the majority is happening outside when solar is producing energy, they need a bigger battery. Right? That's the summary. If more energy is being used during the day, you can go smaller on the battery size. If less energy is being used during the daytime, you can go, you're going to want to go larger on the battery system size. And I won't take a ton of time on these questions, but the 3 big loads that I've seen in California, and I told you I'm a home energy nerd. I'm not just a solar and storage expert. I'm actually a home efficiency, a home comfort, a building performance expert. I teach classes at SDG&E and SoCal Edison for homeowners and professionals on whole home energy performance. I've been doing that for 4 years, and I've been in the whole space for like 12, just in the whole home stuff. So what I've seen on energy analysis is that the big loads, the ones that really move that kind of graph, that I guess it is a graph, that graph curve, right, to later in the day or early in the morning, it's the EV, it's a pool pump, right, or it's an AC or multiple ACs. Now that's 95% of the time. There is probably even 97% of the time. 3% of the time, there's a well pump, there's a, kiln where they, fire, that for hours a day to cure their pottery because that's their hobby. There's some weird other thing, but 97% of the time, it's going to be EVs, pool pumps, and AC. And so you just want to figure out, when's all that happening? Can that change during the daytime? Can it not? So that's the first way to think about things. And then the good news is that you have options with us, right? You have these different battery system sizes. So you're not just stuck with 10 to 20 or 30. You can actually, and I checked with their team, I think it's going to be this week that's all going to be added to the platform along with some other stuff. So it's coming very, very soon. If it's not already there, you get more granular options. And those options are really going to help you dive in and dial in your system size. Now, I talked about this during masterclass as well. There's no perfect size for every customer because every customer is different. But if you start and kind of go down this chart, you can see that there's diminishing returns when you get about above 2 kilowatt hours of battery to 1 kilowatt of solar. Is that the kind of formula? No, it's a derivative of a formula. What does that mean? It means it's something that I figured out that kind of works most of the time. I derived it by running calculations and saying, this is what I see. And it's an easy way to think about this. So there's a few key takeaways here. There are assumptions in this graph. What are the assumptions? The first is that this is a west orientation, which is best, right? Meaning, if I designed a solar system with no battery, okay, and it's facing west. Most likely, based on this profile, this kind of standard usage profile we got from the California Energy Commission, most likely we're going to be able to get a 57% offset on their bill. So 100% solar offset, 57% bill offset. If this orientation is south or east, this might be 50 or 45, right? Because what's happening is we're sending more energy to the home later in the day when energy is more expensive. So we're getting a higher bill offset with a west-facing system. So the first thing to understand is, okay, in general, if I design a solar system in NEM 3.0 with 100% solar offset, I'm getting 50% bill offset. 100% reduction in what they would use based on how much is produced, like you used to think about solar offset. This is going to be 50% savings. And so we need batteries, right? How many batteries do you need? Well, you're going to have a proportion. The way, I'll go to this next chart and I'll come back to here for a second. How did I come up with this whole size? Well, what I figure is this is 100% offset. A PV system size that's designed to offset 100% of the customer usage is going to estimate that the customer is using this much energy on average per day. Okay. So some of that energy is being directly used by the house. The stuff that's not being directly used by the house needs to go in the battery. And so that's why we have this kind of proportion where you can derive from this PV system size what size battery they need if they have less usage during the nighttime, and what size battery they need if they have more usage during the nighttime. Is this a hard rule? No. This is a range to get you started. This is a range to get you started. If I ask the customer, do you have an EV? Yes. They said, yes. Can you charge during the daytime? Oh, I thought I needed to charge during the nighttime. Well, you still want to charge during the nighttime because it was 11 cents and you sell energy back with solar during the daytime for 50 or 30 cents on semi-peak. But now you actually only sell back at 6 cents during the daytime. So you don't really want to sell back at 6 and buy at 11. You actually want to use the energy directly from the sun, right? So you don't have to buy at 11 and sell at 6. So let's move your EV charging in the daytime. They say, okay, I can do that. I say, do you have a pool pump? They say, yes. I say, okay, good. You're running pool pumps during the daytime. Is that cool? Yeah, I can do that. No problem. That's how I like to do it anyways, because I don't want algae building my pool. Okay, great. Air conditioning. Oh, I live in San Diego. Do you run it at nighttime a lot? Well, sometimes, a few nights here and there. Oh, do you have a whole house fan in your house? Oh, yeah, we love our whole house fan. Or no, you don't. We don't have a whole house fan. Well, why do you not run your air conditioning at night? Oh, well, it's just cool nights most of the time. We're coastal. Okay, cool. Now I'm doing 2-to-1 battery. I'm happy as can be. I'm confident that that's going to produce a 90+% bill offset. I am probably going to disclaim and disclose to them that we designed this system because with this battery system size, because you use most of your energy during the daytime, and that's awesome. Most of those large loads that you use during the daytime can directly pull energy from solar. And so we don't need that big of a battery for you. You're good with a 2-to-1 ratio. But if I ask that question and they say, no, I'm in East Valley, San Diego, I run my air conditioning till 2 a.m. every night, or I work in an office and I have to come home and charge my EV at night, I'm now going, I need more batteries for them. Or they're not going to get a 90+% bill offset. They may be stuck with a, 80 or 70% bill offset. I don't want to put my customer in that situation. Right. So that's how I'm thinking about battery sizing. I want to stop here because this might be some of the best juice when it comes to questions, how abouts, what ifs. Why don't I open up the floor for questions? And if there's none, we'll continue, but I think there probably will be.
Well, I've got a question.
Go,
okay,
Barry.
so I get the idea of having these smaller batteries along with the larger battery, like for 13 kilowatts and 16 and all of that. That sounds really good in theory, but a lot of customers, at least that I've been familiar with, don't have a ton of wall space for extra batteries. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, well, we can stack batteries vertically.
Okay.
So you can put two 10s on top of each other. That's 20 right there. You can install our batteries indoors or outdoors, right? So sometimes people like them in the garage just for safety, but you can install them on an outside wall too. I believe our next generation of batteries is going to have one in front of another as an option, but this generation can't do that.
Right.
So you basically have to, find the best solution. I think it's a really responsible thing to tell them, here's how much space the battery takes up. Do you have space on your garage wall for this? If you look at under installers storage, you can see our batteries. The 3 is obviously smaller than the 10, right? So you can sometimes put a 10 and 1 3 next to it. It's not going to take up the same space. And space batteries take up space, right? It's just like if you have a roof that's too small for the solar, what do? You do the best you can.
And of course, you have the requirements, a certain distance from windows and all of that still, right?
I mean, we have a certification called 9540A. 9540A, the A being another level of test standards from United Laboratories, UL. It's the most rigorous and fire safety test that any battery can go through today. So it's the best. I don't think Tesla has it. They may. I'd have to look. But regardless, we have the most flexibility on fire code and any battery can have, but different jurisdictions, some require 3 feet from a window, some require 3 feet from a door. We've been working from a kind of policy and permitting standpoint to try to get into the biggest cities and make a case for, more lax standards on that. But you're right, it's a limitation that we have to deal with now.
And will we need stanchions in a garage, or how does that work?
Some jurisdictions require a pillar in front of the batteries. Usually it's if the battery's on the wall straight where the car is. I haven't seen a lot of that. I mean, we've been installing thousands of batteries in California, and it shows up here or there, but I haven't seen it like on every job. Everybody's complaining about these stanchions. So it's all, I wish we had a standardized code that was implemented across every jurisdiction, but there's probably 300 different jurisdictions, if not 1,000 in California, and each one will kind of handle that a little bit differently, unfortunately. So, just like you would in previous markets, you may want to focus on some key markets that are the least resistance, that are the easiest to sell into, that have the, you run into an issue, it'd be a good idea for Powur to start circulating, hey, here are the biggest issues areas. You can bring them up to our field application engineering team, and we'll try to solve those problems. But that's not an Enphase issue. That's a battery, in general issue, and how to get support for making it as easy as possible to install. Cynthia, I saw your hand up. Thanks. It's great questions, Barry.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. So couple things.
Sorry. One more thing, Cynthia, I just want to point to. If you click on these batteries and you go to technical specifications, it'll show the length, width, height. So if you ever need the specs, you can look at it that way. And I think there's a data sheet here that will show the exact measurements. And I think there's even one that shows, if you go to the installation guide, it has more information about distances, where it can be located. If you want to get into the nitty gritty, there's more resources right under the battery documentation, under installers, storage, and then the battery. And you guys are mostly using the 10T or the 3T. So I just wanted to make sure I clarify that.
Okay, thanks, Spencer. So first question is grid tied battery. I think that the wording is confusing for everyone because we think of battery as backup power, first off. And then second, grid tied battery, that's a new word that I'm hearing as opposed to like what SolarEdge is using, right? They're just calling it a battery. And so it being grid tied, does that mean that it's filling up and also discharging like a regular battery would when it's full?
Yes. So why we say grid tied as opposed to backup is because it's really a grid, it's an on-grid battery. It works when you're on the grid, when you're on the electricity grid, as opposed to off-grid, right? Now I'll take your feedback. You know, there's different companies that have come up with different names for this. Sunrun just released something. Maybe it's called like Power Shift or something. You know, there's all kinds of different names. Can you remind me what Powur? I know Jonathan talked about it. What Powur name calls it?
They're calling it, it's not
Power
Power
Saver.
Basic.
Power Saver.
Power
Power
Saver.
Saver.
Yeah,
That's correct. I mean, it's storage only, basically.
correct.
Right? Storage only. And so when it fills up, is it also discharging to the grid?
So great question. When you go to let me go to this slide right here. If you look at this slide, you really don't want the battery to discharge to the grid,
Right.
except for these 2 hours of these 2 months. And it really is even just September.
Mhm.
If I pull up those rates again, you'll see the lowest rate is 36 cents. So you don't want to discharge the battery even when you're getting 22 cents, because you got to figure that you want to keep that energy in the battery so that you can use it. You don't want to.
We understand that,
Yeah.
but we're getting a lot of questions. It is what happens to excess power once that storage fills. So do we lose it or
No. So once this is helpful. So sun comes out in the morning, right? Immediately it powers the home.
Mhm.
Any extra energy will fill the battery.
And once the battery is full,
Then it'll
excess go.
export the extra solar energy to the grid.
Okay, that's what we wanted to know. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You'll get whatever this is in terms of credits. 5 cents is not nothing, right? So you're not losing any solar energy, but it's better to take that electric vehicle, right? And to charge the electric vehicle, so you're not charging at 36 cents at night once that battery is full.
For sure, for sure. So just to clarify, grid tied battery and regular battery works just like a regular battery as far as exportation. When it fills up, it is going to discharge to the grid. We don't want it to do that, obviously, but it does function that way.
Yeah, I think you asked or clarified the question really, really well. Grid tied battery and regular battery, right? Backup battery works exactly the same way when they're on grid. There's no difference. The only difference in those two solutions is when there's a blackout. The grid tied battery won't work. The backup battery will keep the lights on.
So my question, thank you for that, Spencer.
Yeah.
So my question is, when it comes to the grid tied battery, from what I understand, sizing is different. Like a 10 kW can handle a certain amount because it's just storage versus being used for backup.
It's a great point. And I should probably put together another chart here that shows the difference, because here's what you're pointing to. You're pointing to when you have, I almost want to open up Enlighten. Let me just do something real quick here. Enlighten mobile. If you've never seen our demo app, I'm going to put the link to this in the chat. If you just go to this link and you click on Experience App, you can open up a demo of our app. So what you see in the app right here is, you see how right now the battery is at a 65%. It's probably a little hard to see. I'll try to make it a little bigger. 65% state of charge. That's how much energy is in the battery right now. What's happening is the solar is producing, the house is using this much, and the rest is going to the battery. You can look at it in a live status. Okay, so, this battery is charging here, the house is using this. I'm just giving you a couple background details, but if I go into, where is this? Oh, I go into menu and look at the settings here and go to battery. This is kind of a setting that a customer could use. They have a choice to put their reserve amount, right? So what's that for? So a regular battery will, excuse me, sorry, my email just popped in that screen. A regular battery will want to keep some, and let's just call backup battery is a better way to say a regular. A backup battery, homeowners typically want to keep some amount of power in that battery in case they have a grid outage, right? Typically, an average reserve is 30%. Some people are more conservative and want to put their battery at 50% reserve. Some people who don't care about savings leave their battery at 100% charged because they want to have full battery backup if the grid goes down. We actually call that full backup here as an option. But they can change that in this mode. When you have a grid-tied battery, you can take the battery reserve down to, I think it's as low as 5%. Because you don't care about keeping anything in the battery. There's no reason to do that. So you're right. You actually, if you're doing battery backup, and I should add a slide. It's a really good question, and I'm sorry I didn't include that in the first kind of training, but it's I learned too. If you're including battery backup, you're probably going to want to go a little bit bigger on your battery system size. You may want to bump up 1.3, right? Which, if you're trying to sell more grid tied, which I kind of encourage you to do, not if it's in the worst interest of your customer, but if it could go either way, and you do have influence. If you're trying to sell more grid tied, that's kind of a good way to do that, right? Now you increase the delta a little bit more. They have to go through a bigger barrier to get their battery backup system, because you're going to explain, hey, if you get a battery backup, you're probably going to want to keep some reserve in the battery so you can have the benefit of backup power if the grid goes down. In some cases, they may say, you know what, I don't really care on a day-to-day basis. A short power outage isn't a big deal for me. I just want the battery backup. So if there's a 5-day outage, we're not screwed. Excuse my French. And in that case, maybe they go down to a 10% reserve, right? So I think, look, these are such good conversations to have with homeowners, because the consultant that doesn't have this conversation is going to show up to them like they just don't have the homeowner's best interest in mind. You have these conversations with the homeowner, the right homeowner. Some might not care. Some may already have the fit. Don't overanalyze things. But, getting kind of, clarifying what's important to them, what matters to them, and helping them set expectations, you will shine as a professional. You really will. Great question, Marissa. Thanks for asking. Any follow-up questions there? Can I go to Didier?
Yeah, Didier, go ahead and unmute and ask your question. I know Spencer has to log off soon.
Okay. So question is, let's say someone has a 7 kilowatt solar system, and because they're in San Bernardino, they say there is a lot power outage. Is 10 kilowatt battery would be sufficient? And they are money tight. So is that would be sufficient for them on NEM3 right now?
Great question. So you there's a whole nother training. I'm not sure for anybody who's not, I had no way to really communicate with Powur other than like the big events. And so I created a Facebook group let's see here, right here. I'm going to put this in the chat too. And it's basically I would just be run down if I had to answer my phone with 5,000 power sales reps. So I basically created this so I could have a central place that people communicate and share. And in this group right here, I took 12 in-depth trainings that I had done over the past. And I had been training mostly on batteries about backup systems. So if you want to go deeper on battery backup systems, I would recommend this one, session 5, that's pinned at the top. I'll put it in this chat right now. And I would also recommend advanced storage design. I'll put that in the chat. Okay, so I just want to provide those resources. But I want to help also clarify things for Didier's question because it's a really good one. You kind of want to look at designing a system from a highest common denominator place. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, you want to ask different questions so you can figure out what the battery is being used for. Okay, battery is being used for backup. I want to back up only my non-critical appliances. Refrigerator. Sorry, only my critical appliances. Thanks for that. Maybe it's too short of a link. I'll need to, that's annoying. Here it is. I'll put the whole link. Thank you. So I want to back up my fridge, my lights, my internet, and my TV and my computer. Basic stuff. If you understand the basics of storage system sizing for battery backup, which those trainings really go in depth on, I'll just tell you right now, 10 is great. Great. It'll do the job. Unless it's like a mega mansion, right? But it'll totally do the job to back up those critical appliances. So remember I talked about highest common denominator. So I go, okay, 10. They need a 10 for what their goals are for backup. Now I go to the next bucket. And I look here and I say, okay, what's my offset goal for them? My offset goal is 95%. So I need a 16 to get 95. And I might even need a 20 if they want to keep 30% reserve in there. So now I say, okay, for battery backup, I only need 10, but for 95% bill offset, I need a 20. So highest common denominator. You give them a 10, they're not going to get the bill offset. You got to go with the 20 if you're going to fulfill both of their goals. Now, you could say, look, I'm budget constrained. I think you're going to get a good 75% bill offset, 80% bill offset. Are you comfortable with that? Sure, set expectations. You can sell them a 10. But if you're fulfilling on multiple benefits for the customer, savings and resiliency, keeping the lights on or whatever other appliance is, you're going to want to kind of see what's needed for each of those. And energy is just one of the things. When you look at the other trainings, I talk about energy, power, surge. Surge is for like a big air conditioning. Power is for the pipe being big enough on the drain of the battery to be able to serve as many loads as you need. Energy being how much is stored in the battery. So you kind of got to look through those. And that's how I design. I'll say, did I meet the energy needs? What do I need to meet the energy needs? How long do I need to keep the lights on? Okay, I need this size battery. Okay, how much power do I need? And this may feel overwhelming to you. It may, like, wow, this guy Spencer knows all this stuff. He does this really fast. I am not a genius. I just have a lot of practice. I promise if you use that method on 5 or 10 proposals, it'll be really intuitive for you. It'll be like, okay, energy, I do this quick back of the envelope calculation. Here's the thing, power. I know they're doing a partial home. I know they're here. I'm good on power. Are they backing up air conditioning? No. You'll be able to do a few check marks, 2 minutes, come up with a pretty good plan for them. It'll become intuitive. It just takes practice. That's it.
Spencer, are you have a couple minutes or do you need to leave?
Yeah, let's do 2 more minutes.
Okay.
2-3 more minutes, one more question, and then let's wrap, if that's
You
okay.
still have- yeah.
And Cynthia, I really appreciate you having me. It's great to be here with you guys. If you want to do another training in another 3-4 weeks with more battery backup, or just as people get in the field and start going, I'm happy to do that.
Definitely. I think that as we see objections come across, we're going to have more questions as time goes on. So Isela was asking in the chat if Enphase is going to have office hours or any other trainings for battery sizing. I know you provided a couple in the chat, but
Yeah, I
so-
have office hours every Tuesday at 11:30 Pacific time, and it's on the Power calendar.
awesome.
Somebody else in the chat would say it would be great to have a TurboTax style tool. I don't know if we have that, but we do have a design tool for backup. And I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. It's pretty cool. You can actually click on this advanced configuration and you can click things on and off and it'll show you what size battery system you need. So I'll put that in the chat as well. Any other questions? Yeah, Stacy. Oh, sorry, Cynthia.
Yeah. I actually am going through your Enphase certification training. And not, well, online. But in regards to the thing that you just posted, how do we know the numbers or the factors of a heat pump of a thing? Do we have to get all that information from the homeowner? Like I didn't understand that it would be as easy as checking or unchecking, an appliance or a heat pump or whatever. Isn't there some kind of factor we need from each appliance?
Yeah. So
How do I know what the pool pump, uses or doesn't use?
Yeah. So I love Enphase University. I'll share with you. It was a great curated training. My concern about, I don't know if we're recording this, but my disclaimer to you about that is I don't think somebody who sold in the home did that training. Okay. So the trainings, the 2 links I just put into the chat are done by me. And I've got a lot of experience selling in the home. So I specifically did those trainings on battery backup to make it as simple as possible to explain the best practices to figure out the right system size for storage for battery backup. So I do encourage those as an augmentation to Enphase University. And the tool I just showed you does make it that simple. You do have to click things on or off. You can choose generalities, but if you go into here, you can get more specific. Hey, I got the label here. It's a 4-ton unit. I even got more details. I read off the label. The LRA is 112. And I talk about some of those details in some of those advanced trainings. And I'm happy to do a live one if that's helpful as well and answer a lot of questions about battery backup. But hopefully this is a good initial start.
My brain started frying when I saw all the drop down and all the things that you can add in and clarify. And I'm like, how do I do it for every project? So
I helped build that tool. But tools are only as effective as the person who knows how to use them. And the more practice you can get, the more experience you can get using the tool. Like that's how I became so good, not because I use the tool every time. It's because I kind of figured out how to think and how the tool thinks. And so now that's how I think, right? I was just like, come up with quick solutions, run the numbers. So, I highly encourage those trainings. I'm happy to come back, and I appreciate you guys having me here today.
Thank you so much, Spencer. Always so helpful and educational. And yeah, we would love to have you come back in a few weeks, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more questions then. I'll hand it over to Marisa to close up the meeting, and then we'll head into office hours soon.
Okay, awesome.
Yes, thank you again, Spencer. Much appreciated. We, like Cynthia said, we'll definitely get you back on the calendar.
Okay, sounds good.
All righty.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Moving along to the end of the meeting, just a quick screen share for everyone in our meeting, how to get project help. You've got questions on your project, please grab that screen share so that you know the next steps to take in order to get answers on those projects. And then we do have a Women of Power newsletter that will go out. So if you are not already part of the newsletter, please add your first, last name, and email address to the chat. You will be added to the newsletter. That newsletter will have today's training. All the links that Spencer put in the chat will also be there. And then any other things that may help you out with your business. So way to get other trainings, videos, resources, all in that newsletter that comes out weekly. Okay, and then we always end with an inspirational quote. So today our quote says, the most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. And that's a quote that came out of the book Atomic Habits. Really great read. On that note, I want to thank you all again for joining us this week. Please come back next week. See you here soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to watch the Women of Power training series. I hope that you got some great value out of that video, and there's much, much more where that came from. Listen, if you'd like to join Power or find out more about this awesome and amazing platform, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in the description. I look forward to connecting with you real soon. Have a great day.